Buckle up, sports fanatics. This is the Sports Chasers Podcast, your HQ for in-depth sports talk. Join host Kevin L. Warren and crew as they dissect the hottest stories, ignite debates, and bring you closer to the action. From locker room whispers to expert takes, we cover it all. It's game time, so strap in and grab a drink. The Sports Chasers Podcast starts right now.
Good afternoon and happy Monday to everybody. Hope everybody's had a great weekend, man. It is June 30th, Monday, June 30th, 2025. Welcome to the Sports Chasers Podcast. And this is the interview sessions where we sit down, we talk to notable people in the sports world, whether they can be in the medical field like we have today or an actual athlete like we've had before, and others when it comes to the world of sports, man. But before we get into that, man, make sure you like, click, and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you hit all the bells for all the notifications. And those that are listening on the sound of my voice on the podcast inside, you love what you hear, like what you hear, give us that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star review, 5-star review. Love us or hate us. Let us know how we're doing. You guys definitely are doing that, especially all the hate. And that's cool. We're cool with it, man. We love with it. Good afternoon, DA. How are you today on this Monday afternoon, sir?
I'm great.
We are good.
You're good, man. You're good. Okay. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Man, so listen, like I said, we had a very special guest today, man. But before, as we always do, I love to give people wonderful introductions, man. So before I introduce before we bring him on, let's give him a formal introduction here. This is another powerful edition of the Sports Chasers Podcast interview sessions. Today, we step off the playing field into the front lines of brain recovery and neuro health with a truly remarkable guest, Mr. Nate Pope. He's a neurological occupational therapist and co-founder of NCX Brain Recovery. With over 20 years experience, Nate is a leading force in the multi-sensory integration therapy, a groundbreaking approach that's changing the game for athletes and individuals battling concussions, traumatic brain injuries, and post-concussion syndrome. From locker rooms to recovery rooms, Nate brings real solutions, real hope, and real science to the conversation. Whether you're an athlete, coach, parent, or just someone passionate about brain health, this is the episode for you. You don't want to miss this one. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, strap in. Let's get ready to talk about the brain, and we'll do it with Mr. Nate Pope. Nate, we're going to give you some applause here. How are you today? How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Uh-oh, we lost Kevin. Kev? And
Yeah.
we lost him. Can you hear me, Nate?
Kevin's on mute.
Yeah. Kevin, are you on mute? Let me just hit him up here. So, while we get Kevin back on, well, how did you start and your discipline, neuroscience and brain health and recovery? I know that's a pretty long road because there are a lot of different stops along the way there. So how did you end up where you ended up?
Sure. Well, I started 22 years ago as an occupational therapist, working mostly with kids. And this is like elementary school kids all the way through high school age kids.
Wow.
Lots of developmental issues, various disabilities, and a fair amount of brain-related issues.
Right.
It wasn't until about 12 years ago that I started really getting more interested and involved in concussion rehabilitation and mild traumatic brain injury
Right.
stuff. And so that was a 12-year journey. 8 of it was working with one of the lead research centers in the world for post-concussion syndrome. Basically, if you hit your head and you've got symptoms, but after 1 month they don't get better, then you're most likely in that post-concussion realm. And and got to work with cutting edge research. They would do the research and say, hey, we need therapy that makes sense with the new research, because this 1 hour a day here and there, approach wasn't working. And anyway, make a long story short, I had a great time with them, 8.5 years with them, bouncing back and forth between new research, developing new therapy, and helped develop some of their programs and therapies. And then 4 years ago decided, at the time that clinic was especially the best at research, and their therapy was also great. But they were overwhelmed. They were 7 months backed up with people flying from all over the world. And I just said, I think I want to start my clinic, my own clinic. And at that point, decided to really focus on the quality of the therapy and on the outcome of the therapy. I'm a therapist. I'm not a doctor. So I'm really at the rehab side of things. And
gotcha.
Okay.
So you're 22 plus years in. 12 years ago, you went away from just the therapist part, from a brain standpoint. 12 years ago, you jumped into sports and recovery from those concussions and things of that nature. And then 4 years ago, you kind of started your own thing. So from that point in time, 4 years ago, what have you seen change in your last 4 years from the time you initially saw folks started jumping into this concussion thing from sports? Has there been a different focus? I remember 12 years ago, I can remember it like it was yesterday, watching ESPN that, football was the devil. Don't play football. Don't let your kids play football. Don't do all those things. Is it now more open to where we're like, because I knew then that it was soccer probably had the most concussions, and then female cheerleading, I think, had it after that. So, as my sons both play high school football, so I knew that. So how did it change, and when did it change, and is there a change, and maybe there wasn't a change?
So, and you're talking change in
just the concussion therapy and the focus on it from the sports perspective, or you guys like, kind of digging down in the younger ages and,
Sure. Yeah, you bet. So the people getting concussions, that hasn't changed a lot. We still have a lot of soccer, for example. We do have the female cheerleaders, and of course football. Helmets are great for protecting the skull and everything, but concussion is a acceleration deceleration thing, and you're not slowing the speed of the brain or changing that with the helmet as much. They're great because they protect everything else, but you're going to still get those concussions. So we have the people getting them. It hasn't changed. The therapy has changed. When 12 years ago it started changing, I was with a research clinic called Cognitive FX. My clinic is NCX Brain Recovery, but Cognitive FX really did a lot of groundbreaking research with functional MRI, where it's more of a video of a brain than a snapshot. So they were able to kind of really learn. First, they had to figure out what does normal look like, and then they would bring people in who had concussed brains, still had symptoms that weren't getting better after a month, and they could see definite differences in, here's this part of the brain is not getting enough blood, for this activity, because you're doing activities while you're being scanned, and these other areas are lighting up, getting more blood flow, because the blood kind of follows activity. And so they realized when you get a concussion, that research really helped us realize that parts go inactive or less active. Other parts of our brain really engage and go overactive, compensating. And you just end up in this compensation pattern. It's cool that your brain can compensate, but it's not cool as a long-term option, because parts that aren't designed to do those jobs just aren't as good at them, and you'll end up with symptoms. And if your brain decides that's the new norm, then you got a problem, because now your brain, healthy brain tissue, the good news is it's, you look at a regular MRI that looks for like permanent damage stuff and scar tissue and bleeding, etc. It looks perfect. They're like, oh, you're fine. If you get a regular MRI and you're like, no, I'm not, I got all these symptoms. But they learn on these functional MRIs that, hey, these brains are healthy brain tissue, but some areas are underperforming and other areas recognize that, took over. They're doing the job for the areas that are not doing their job. And this compensation that's going on has now become the brain's habit. And it's such a creature of habit. It just, that 1 hour little bit of therapy here and there wasn't working. And so that's why the research about 12 years ago started changing the therapy. Like, we need more intense. We need a lot of hours in a row, many days in a row,
Right.
of intense therapy if we want to really change this pattern. And so that's where it started changing 12 years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a quick question, and it's not even a question. I'm asking if you may, because you mentioned this a few minutes ago, actually.
Yeah.
If you could, just for our audience, could you explain to them, without going too technically, what a concussion is? Because I think what you said with the helmets means a lot, right? That people don't seem to understand. It's the go and stop of the brain moving within. Well, you'll say it better than I will, as one
Sure.
who's probably had more than 5 or 6 of these things. With the helmets and that, yeah, they're, I guess, are benefits, but not benefits in the way that's, I think, impacting the concussions the way they should. So, sir, if you could just go into that real, because I think folks that are parents and whatnot need to hear this so they don't think that the helmets will save everything.
Sure. Yeah. So that's actually a great thing to point out. So concussions are, what we found is the brain is made of different densities. It's not all the exact same. And so when it goes from 0 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour, because you get hit and it's just, a huge increase in speed. So it goes from one point, so that's an acceleration thing, or if you're going super fast and then you hit something and it stops, then you're going really fast to 0.
Right.
And certain parts will stretch different because of their density discrepancy. So that they move different. And so you're basically stretching neurons, and there's kind of a shearing force with the neurons, but especially a stretching that goes on in the brain. And I work with not just athletes, but also car accident victims, and they're going so many miles an hour and then boom, it stops, and parts of the brain move different at different speeds because of that density. And so you have the stretching force going on in the brain, which disrupts things, very rarely permanently damages things, but it disrupts it enough that some of those neural pathways don't engage right away. And the brain hates to not be able to do its basic things, its basic functions, so other parts will take over. And the problem is that sometimes that changing and shifting of duties in the brain sticks, and it doesn't go back. Now, most concussions,
He's stuck.
Oh, he's stuck? Okay.
Yes, sir.
80%, but that's still a pretty big.
Yep, we dropped him. Hold on a second. There you go. Can you hear us?
Yes, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
So, with about 80% of the concussions resetting, that's great, but that 20% is still a pretty big number. And if you get 2 concussions, or 3 or 4, your percentages go way up. And so, that can really disrupt someone's life if they have symptoms that just don't get better after that. And so you got a lot of people walking around with post-concussion syndrome, essentially. And the 1 hour a week approach, or a little bit here and there, or even a few hours, is just not enough.
Let me ask you this, Nate. So what is exactly multi-sensory integration therapy, and how does it differ from regular traditional concussion therapy that you're doing?
Yeah. So if you have, say, post-concussion syndrome, you may have some visual motor issues and some balance issues and some word retrieval issues. And so you have a lot of different areas that are affected. If you go to traditional therapies, not only will they do minimal hours, and not enough, but they'll also isolate the therapy. So if you go to vision therapy, you're going to be sitting in a chair, not moving your body, not talking that much. Mostly they're going to be challenging your vision. And if you go to, physical therapy, in most cases, they're going to be not engaged in, thoughtful conversation or anything, or a lot of visual. It's mostly balance and body movement stuff. And so all the therapies have, for whatever reason, we decided that we wanted to isolate systems and work on them in isolation. But what we found is, most of the activities we care about, if you're playing a sport, you got to have high level of visual motor, like engagement, at the same time that your balance and body movement motor planning, centers are engaged, and all of your brain needs to work in a more integrated way. So a multi-sensory integration approach is basically, we don't want to allow the brain to cheat or to compensate anymore. So we try to make multiple major processing areas of the brain work at the same time. So simultaneously, you may be doing a balance exercise or body movement. You have to think about what your body's doing, but you're probably also tracking something visually that we're making. Maybe it's just a ball that we're throwing at you, and you've got to cross from right to left to catch it. So you're making sure you've got the right left brain thing going on too. And then we're also talking and engaged in conversation. We might be even doing some memory or math, problem solving. We try to make the brain work, many areas work at the same time, so they have to work together. And none of them can stay inactive very easily when you do many hours in a row of engaging the whole brain,
Right.
So that's what really breaks that compensation pattern, usually, is doing many hours in a row, many days in a row of targeting the areas you suspect are less active, but making sure you also include all the other areas too, many other areas, so that the brain has to work together. And so nothing's done in isolation.
So you kind of use the film, as you said, just not a
Snapshot.
static snapshot. And it says, okay, these parts of the brain are not working, I guess, together. And then you guys focus in on that to get a kind of holistic whole brain thing, I guess, because, you're left and right, you're talking, you're catching, you're balancing, you're doing a bunch of things at once to try to test or stress, I guess, in a good way, and get you back to normal activity, so you can, kind of multitask as you would used to, or before you went to the other pathway, I guess, with, that the concussion pushed you on. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
I never heard of that. That's really good. I may need to come see you guys.
He's out there. You're out there in Denver, correct, Nate? In Denver area? Utah. I'm sorry, Utah. Okay.
Not too far away.
Right. Yeah. Same time zone, right? What about those people that said, if they get a bump on the head or whatever, and they're saying, what are some of the post concussion syndromes that are often missed by just regular people, saying that, hey, I'm just fine?
Yeah. Well, when you have symptoms that linger after a month, sometimes they're they're pretty obvious and sometimes they're not. And so
Right.
the ones that get missed a lot is, gosh, it might be months later that you notice I just have headaches and they just,
Don't
I
go
never
away.
used to have as many headaches, and sometimes they don't go away, but like you always have like a 1 out of 10 headache. It's mild, but it's kind of always lingering. Or some people notice like their vision. They're like, well, the doctor says my eyes are fine, but like sometimes it's blurry and sometimes it's clear.
Right.
And that's usually when the eyes are not converged. So they're not pointing directly at what they need to for just a split second, because the main area that controls that is maybe less active. And another area recognizes, oh no, you got to have a clear image. So it'll get it right eventually, but there's a delay. So um, they'll have light
Understand.
sensitivity, noise sensitivity, brain fog is a huge one, and mental fatigue. Those two are huge.
Yeah.
And they just think they don't necessarily connect it to, oh, I hit my head a month ago, and or several months ago. And these can even come up like a year later, because if you're just off a little instead of a lot, you might not notice the symptoms until you're kind of like an overheating engine, in a car. If you got a part that's just not right or is broken, or you
Right.
need to change the filter or something like that, it's going to put strain on the system and you're going to start overheating. And eventually you'll
Right.
see the symptoms. But by that time, you don't connect it to what caused it, the head injury. So that's how a lot of that stuff gets missed. Um,
I think that total body thing you're saying is huge. It's huge. Like, one thing will kind of fall over into another thing and fall into another thing. And then, those small things mean a lot in the body. So,
yeah. Yeah. And it's quality of life at the heart of when we see patients come in. We care about the sport and returning to play and all of that stuff.
Right.
But the reality is they all care about their family and their
yeah.
job
Yeah.
and their life, and just
Sure.
feeling like themselves again. And they, if you have post concussion syndrome, just you probably have 5 to 20, maybe more post concussion related symptoms, and maybe just mild degrees of a lot of things, but they add up, and your
Right.
quality of life, it goes down quite a bit. The big hopeful part of all of that is, remember, this is a total healthy brain getting enough blood to be healthy brain tissue. It's just that certain areas are disengaged and others are overworking, trying to help out, and that can be totally fixed and changed. So too many people jump to the live with it approaches, which is what a lot of therapy approaches are really. Let's help you. If you're light sensitive, let's look at sunglasses. Or if you have a headache, we need to try another medication. Um,
Yeah. Rather than heal it.
yeah, yeah, and most of that stuff can be reset. You can get healthy brain tissue to work again and re-engage those neural pathways that have been disrupted. You just have to do the right things with an intense approach.
Right. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. Dip.
I was gonna say that's pretty, not pretty. It's ultimately important to getting you back to being yourself again. And so when you have younger kids that you have to deal with this and that aren't really sure how to articulate what the heck is going wrong, or what they may feel is not working, what's your approach with them as opposed to a college athlete that's probably gone through some things before, and not
Yeah.
maybe in fact not even an athlete, right? Someone that's a bus driver, a soldier, or anyone that's gone through something where they can receive a concussion or multiple concussions. Uh, is there any difference in the way you approach their
For sure.
diagnoses and their care?
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially with the treatment, it changes a lot. But to figure it all out, usually you're relying. If it's a kid, we rely a lot on the parents, and we get a lot of feedback. Like, what have you noticed different? Because you talk to the kid, and getting about half of what you need in terms of symptoms. They don't even know what brain fog is. I mean, some of us don't either, but like you go through a lot of symptoms and they just, it's hard for them to describe. But I worked in pediatrics enough before I did this that it's been helpful background for me. But usually I'm asking the parents, have you noticed a change? Has it been harder for them to learn at school? You'll notice a lot of it show up, when they're in school trying to remember things, or reading requires that visual focus. And I'll figure out, okay, they do have some blurry vision and they do have some memory issues. And balance wise, they don't like to play that sport they used to play. And that's weird that they don't like it anymore. And it might be balance, could be the emotional side. There is also an emotional side. Emotional dysregulation happens to most people with post-concussion. So they'll be like, I have anxiety or depression, and I didn't have it before. Well, guess what? If you hit your head and then you have it, that is not the same kind of depression. It's not the same kind of anxiety or ADHD. Like, people think they have ADHD, and you do not usually have ADHD. If you hit your head and now your focus is off, that's different. That's not part of post-concussion syndrome. Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you this, and because you audience break it down. What is like the actual definition in term for what's that, memory fog you just said?
Brain fog.
Brain fog, and what's that, mental fatigue? Can you break those things down for us?
Sure. Yeah. Well, they're two of like a list of 40 symptoms that are typical post-concussion syndrome symptoms. But they are some that people ask about, or especially the brain fog is. Brain fog is like you don't have clearness of thought. You might find yourself, walking around just being like a little bit like confused off and on, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Like, and what was my schedule today? Like, what's going on? Like, and someone asks you a question, it might take you a while to even register what they said, like, wait a minute, and respond to it. So there's brain fog is just, it feels kind of like a fog for all of your thinking. And I think that's why they call it brain fog and why that came up. But it's like, you can see through it, but it's really kind of hard to see through it, and it takes you a while. There's some delay usually, and yeah.
Gotcha.
Good question.
Okay. Good question. Another thing I just wanted to ask you, do you still think that, or do you think that society, do we still underestimate long-term effects of brain injuries, especially in the sports culture?
Yeah. It's hard not to focus on the thing you love, and so people don't want. There's not the motivation to take it serious because they just want to keep playing. But what they really don't realize is it's counterproductive. If you want to keep playing, the best research shows, like, if you heal from previous concussions because you do the right therapy and you get to where you have no symptoms and your performance is back where it always was before you hit your head, and you've truly recovered. If you've recovered, then another concussion is mostly like a new concussion. It's not like a cumulative effect. If you are playing on a mostly healed concussion, for example, and then you get another concussion, now you've got a cumulative effect, and your long-term recovery just got a lot longer. Like, your recovery time got longer because you just added on top, and there's if athletes really care about getting back to that, they need to especially care about, okay, what do I do now to heal completely from this? Which is kind of cool that the best way is an intense approach, because we're a week or 2 weeks, most of our patients in our clinic. And then after that, it's like aftercare, doing an hour here and there, like every day for about 8 weeks after, just to make sure it sticks. But you're 2 weeks in, 91% of our patients that come in for the 2-week program have 75% reduction in symptoms in just those 2 weeks. And that's before the 8 weeks of, doing a home program of like an hour a day. And so those patients, they're going to get back in the game quicker because they're going to really take care of things and get totally back on their feet and get their brain healed.
So if I may ask, how are because you won me over, right? I'm ready to come see you now, and my concussions were a while ago, but
that doesn't matter, by the way.
I'm sorry. But the NFL, MLS, groups like that, leagues that need you, and I'll say it, need you. They need your services. They need the way you guys are attacking this, right, for their own good, right? Because as stated, if you can assist someone now for 8 weeks and get them back to 100%, then the next concussion will be as if it's a brand new one and not an extension of a 75% or 65% cured concussion, which elongates the time that you're in recovery from that concussion. It becomes one long concussion. How can we help, and how can we get those groups more involved? Is it like they know, and it's just a slow time? It takes time for these things to happen. But how can we get your help to the people that need you the most, per se, air quotes, need you the most? Because the leagues may not say they need you the most, but in reality, they probably need you the most. Right? So, yeah.
Sure. Well, I've worked with, it's an interesting group. You got your professional trainers and doctors, and like I said, I'm a therapist that just happens to have had a fortunate background with this cutting edge research and figuring out the therapy side of things. But it's hard to go as a therapist sometimes and convince team doctors, that. Okay. I think you could add this to your program. They have a lot of ownership and understandably, they want to take care of their people. And so,
understood.
I think some of the best ways, I love to just chat with them and talk to them. And if I can sit down and talk with people about, hey, this is what we do. What are you doing? And then we figure out, okay, you have the personnel, you could add this to your program, I'd be happy to help them add some things just to make sure they're maybe doing things a little bit, for example, approach. And but aside from that, coming into the clinic is great. I've worked with professional athletes in the past, and it's more of a high profile case. It always makes me a little bit stressed, I got to really perform because I got this, he's the professional kicker, on this football team. And so, but at the end of the day, they're real people. And they also, even though they want to get back in the game, they care more about their life and their families and stuff usually too. They just want to feel good again. So I'm happy to help anyone at that level.
Great. Yeah. And I was going to ask, so, with that said, and I didn't think about it when you said it, but it makes a bunch of sense that, you have the doctors of the teams and they have their own kind of thing. So it seems that, maybe the high schools might be a little bit more, or college. Well, college is probably about the same as the pro team. They got their physicians. But high school athletes and soccer's big out there, football's out there. Okay. Oh, you do a lot more college and high school. Okay. Cool. Well,
more college than pro.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And I guess that's good, right? Because if you get a guy in college, then you're going to do a great job. Of course, word of mouth. When they do get to the pros or get around professional ranks, they can say, "Hey, I went to this guy, and he really helped me. And a lot of times, they can kind of it's not self-medication, but it's kind of going outside. My hope is that there's no the team doesn't have any policy against it, but for the most part, it's, hey, I'm gonna go see this guy because I went to go see him when I was playing at Colorado State, and he really helped me, or whatever. That helps a lot. Word of mouth is always the best.
Yeah.
At least one of the best ways to get information out there. So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Our favorite
yeah,
patients.
yeah.
Word
Indeed.
of mouth.
Let me ask you this, Nate. Any powerful, successful story that you've had doing this within the 20 years that you maybe can share with us?
Sure. Yeah. Well, all of our patients that have full recoveries, like that 100% recovery, it's hard to pick, because they're just it's so rewarding to see where they were at and in a relatively short period of time where they get to. And I can't tell you, how many times people are just saying, thank you for giving us our life back. Like I wasn't myself, but I guess I could pick one that's more like athlete related. This guy had close to, I think it was like 17 or 18, almost 20 concussions that he knew of. He was a college wrestler. Wrestlers we have a fair amount of wrestlers too, by the way, depending on their style of wrestling. Some shoot with their head, and and that's problematic. But anyways, he was just on the verge of being done with life. And when you have a headache, I don't know, most people have had a few bad headaches in their life, or migraines or whatever. If you can imagine, as one of your 20 plus symptoms is an 8 out of 10 headache all the time, what that would do to you. Just that. And that's one of many symptoms. And this was this kid just didn't want to end things, but suicide was in his mind when he came in. And so it was, from that starting point, and then to see, as the brain started to wake up, the areas that were less active and other areas could calm down, and the symptoms started to shed. Just seeing his countenance change, his demeanor, he started smiling. He hadn't smiled. He I think joked about, like, I haven't smiled or laughed like in years, and
That is cool.
and just to see him go from such a low point, and he made 100% recovery, and it was just awesome to see. And his was actually just in the 2 weeks. I asked him at the end, what symptoms have you got? And he says, I can't pick a single symptom.
Wow.
And we still do, the 8 weeks of aftercare, because we want to maintain what we gain.
Right.
This is why we have the aftercare. Whatever we gain in that 2 weeks is usually pretty remarkable. It's significant for almost everybody, but nobody wants to lose any of it.
Right.
And then if, let's say, you get 70% in that 2 weeks, nobody wants to end there either. Now they know recovery is possible. They want 100.
Right.
So the aftercare is really, let's maintain all that you gained, and let's build and just keep working. So
does your aftercare? Does aftercare? I was going to ask. So I assume the aftercare is longer than the 8 weeks if they need it, right? They can call for certain things, and you teach them other exercises to do on their own, so forth and so on. I mean, it seems to me folks should be doing this for years after the fact.
It's kind of a training ground for, we want to do a few things that maintain, all the progress we made, and build some habits. But it's kind of a training ground for lifetime changes.
Right.
Like, there's going to be some things that you're going to need to do And it could be from sleep habits and eating habits and, all of those others. We want to make sure we cover all of the basics, but you're going to need to do a few things for your brain to just make sure you're on top of things, and we can tailor it to each individual. If we worked with them, we know you are good in these areas, but these 2 or 3 are areas you could work on. Let's just make sure you're always doing something that's engaging and improving in those areas. And then once you're to that 100%, we try to tailor it because we're occupational therapists. We're all of us are neurological occupational therapists here. And one of our specialties is connecting people to things that are meaningful to them, hobbies and interests. And so therapy doesn't feel like therapy if you're doing something you love and it just
Right.
happens to be good for you. And so at the end of the day, the aftercare is all about, we want to build lifelong habits of doing some activities that you love and enjoy, and hopefully something you maybe would have wanted to do anyways, but it just happens to be great therapy for you as well. So
Sounds great. Question. My last question.
yeah.
Food. And you did touch on it. And I've heard for years, like, the I can't remember the diet now. The Mediterranean diet is good for your, good for your brain or something of that nature. The diet part of it, how do you guys approach it? Because
Good question.
how do you approach that?
Sure.
Because I know it works. I know it works.
Yeah. Your cells can only do what you're giving them, and if they're not getting the right nutrients or nutrition that they need, it's going to affect everything, including brain cells, and like all of our cells are going to be affected that way. But a Mediterranean diet is actually a great example of kind of what we generally recommend. It's pretty much a balanced. You want some pretty good balance. We also like all the research with creatine. That's been pretty awesome for the brain health as well. And so, we have a nutritionist that more specifically will talk to patients when they come in and kind of tailor it. They like to figure out, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So they know what you're doing wrong, and kind of fix it and get some habits in there so that, and again, that's lifestyle change, not just while you're in the clinic and stuff. So
cool. Yeah, I my son was just getting on me about the creatine. So yeah, gotcha.
About not taking it?
No, taking it.
I heard
Yeah,
this.
it's been it's not just for bodybuilding. It's probably is better for you mentally. It's better for your brain than it is for your body. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
and if you think about if you took it back in the days, you weren't actually stronger. Your focus on the weights was more, and you could focus more on your workout, and you did everything right, so you could lift more. So that's kind of the way an old dude said it to me the other day. So
or run more or do stuff. Yeah, that's a good question. I was going to get to that towards the end, but that's a very good question that you asked there. Let me ask you this, Nate. What are some of the things in neuroscience that are right now that excites you? Any innovative things that can make the recovery change the landscape of this? That's up and coming.
Yeah, well, we want to be the best at helping people recover from this stuff. So we try to stay on top of any new, any enough history. You got to be careful with just new, because sometimes there's new stuff that it doesn't have enough research or history yet to know, how it's going to be. But red light therapy is one we've just added a modality to what we do. It's got some pretty decent research that's showing the increase of blood flow. When you increase blood flow in the brain, you're increasing oxygen, and a lot of the neurochemical things we want to happen for forming neural pathways, for new learning, for retaining what we've learned, etc., and just being on top of your game in general requires that oxygen. And so Cardio's, we start a little bit of cardio before every single one of our engaging, our multisensory activities that we do, because we get that oxygen to the brain, and research is really showing you get that blood flow and the oxygen with that extra fresh blood. You're going to be on top of your game, and you're also going to be able to do better performing cognitively in almost every way. You have about a 30-minute window after that cardio where that still is going. So, students, hey, they ought to do cardio right before they study for a test, kind of thing. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of cool. Knowing how much cardio can help right before and to help with the brain is cool, the red level. But really what we do is pretty cutting edge, and not a lot of people are doing that. So that's still our main thing. But I am excited that generally people have stopped what we call cocooning after a concussion. We've started to learn, at least, you don't go in a dark, quiet room and do nothing, because that is what really can cause some of these things. Now, I'm saying this, and some people who may hear it, that's what their doctor told them to do, because unfortunately that's still a recommendation. You have a concussion, you need to rest. Go somewhere dark, quiet, don't do anything. And that pretty much deprives the brain of the stimulation it needs to not go into post-concussion syndrome. And
that's exactly opposite of what they should be doing.
Opposite. Now, rest is important in terms of you need to do kind of more low grade intensity everything. Like, don't go out and practice and go crazy, but walking around, being outside, engaging visually, talking to people. But you may not jump back into school if you're a college student. It might be too stressful, and that's not exactly the best for you at that point.
Right.
But you don't want to go in a dark, quiet room and do nothing. Because if you're not moving your body a little, if you're not using your vision a little, and if you're not talking and engaging, those parts that can actually contribute to
I think,
post-concussion.
Nate, based upon what you said, if they actually understand what your pathology is, there's no way you want anyone to stop doing stuff, because that's the problem, is that your brain stopped doing stuff and another part had to make up for it.
Yeah.
And if you continue to stop doing stuff, you're going to continue to push the brain to kind of have the left foot walk for the right foot as well, which is not going to work. So they just don't understand the pathology. But now that I got it, I get it. I'm good. Now, 30 years ago, I had 40 years ago, no idea 40 years ago that this is right. But hey, it is what it is. So
go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, we all need a chill mode where we're still active, we're still doing stuff, but we do need to push the chill mode, and that
right.
When a doctor says take it easy, that's right. That's you need to kind of go just relaxed mode, but nothing.
Understood.
So
understood.
So you answered one of my questions. I was going to say, what's a wish that you would have for athletes, parents, and coaches to understand about brain recovery? So, don't cocoon, right? You shouldn't be cocooning. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, no cocooning. And, the sooner you start, if you're in the acute phase, you just had a concussion, after a day or so of just the chill mode, right, you do need to add non-jarring cardio to your repertoire. And that's like a stationary bike or swimming. Jogging is too jarring for the brain. Right. So one thing you do want to avoid is the bouncy stuff, because that can aggravate things. But you do want to get blood to the brain. So how do you do it? If your normal mode is your sport or jogging or whatever, well, you got to find a different, like a stationary bike is probably the best go-to, or swimming is great, even elliptical. I mean, there's ways to get your cardio without bouncing. But that's something, if you add that, then you get that blood to the brain, and you've just offset your chances quite a bit of ever coming to me or having it become post-concussion syndrome, because you'll reset while you're in that acute stage.
Right. Question. So, as far as your clientele or visits, I was going to get to this. Do you guys have what's that? Kind of like Zoom visits, and where you guys have other, I guess, affiliate doctors, and if a guy's in, New York, and he's heard about you and he wants to talk to you, Nate, can he go online and talk to you, and then you kind of prescribe therapy to guys, that I wouldn't say on your network, but at least kind of understand what you're doing. And you say, hey, well, tell them to do this, 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 and that. So is that available?
Yep. Until we get overwhelmed, we still offer just free consultations. We do virtual consultations because we have a lot of people out of the state, obviously, and some international as well, and so we have to do it that way anyways. But most people at that stage are just a little bit deer in the headlights, like, what do I do? A lot of them have done everything that they could do. That's like the traditional approach, is that 1 hour a week stuff, and or just a little here and there. And so we do a consult. I want to make sure that it's a good fit. So the main goal of that consult is, hey, let's see if this is post-concussion syndrome, if we think it is. And if it's something else, then I'm happy to give free advice as to where I think they could go to get that help they need. And if I think it's post-concussion syndrome, then I say, I think it's a good fit. And at that point, we set something up if they want to do treatment. And if they're out of state, they're going to be living with us for 2 weeks, probably. They're going to usually fly in or drive in and stay in a hotel, and we get to know them really well. So by the time they leave the clinic, we're
your family.
Yeah, we like family. Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's many tears actually on the last few days, because you get close to people you work with.
That's fantastic.
That many hours in a row.
Fantastic.
That's absolutely true. I mean, not that I had a brain injury. I just had a rotator cuff injury that I suffered for the last 10 months. And you're right. You get close with the people at the therapy clinic and helping you. And when you cross the finish line, as I did, those people are happy that they was able to get you back to 100% a normal life. And shout out to those. They know who they are. That got me. But shout out to you for you doing what you've been doing. You've been doing it for 20 years and helping people find their life again, and helping them and doing it through new cutting edge technology, man, which is also great in its own kind. So, man, kudos to you. Anything else? What kind of legacy you want to leave with this, with the NCX Brain Recovery thing?
Sure. Well, I'm a family guy myself, so I just I love my wife and kids. I have 6 kids and a big family, but I see everyone that I see come into the clinic, I see as this individual, but they're also connected to families. Yes. And I hope just to spread the influence through recovery, because when you change one life, you're changing many. And it's kind of a therapist dream job, to be able to see people where they're at and where they want to be and help them get there. So just keep helping people achieve their potential and get whatever barriers that happen to be connected to their brain injury out of the way.
Gotcha.
Of them doing what they want to do. Yeah.
Got you. Listen, we appreciate you coming on, and like I said, we got it scrolling down the bottom where if you want to reach Nate and get some consultation. It's down there below. It's what is it? www.ncxrecovery.com. It's yeah, and we'll have. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nate.
Oh, I was just saying it's www.ncxbrainrecovery.com.
I'll fix that, but it'll be the correct thing will be in the notes. Sorry about that. Nate, thank you so much for talking to us, man. Also, I want to say this one thing because DA brought it up too earlier. My wish for you, I hope somebody in the NFL PAs sees this and would love to add what you're doing to what the NFL is doing. That would be my wish for you, because now that they're talking about brain injuries and stuff like that, why not?
Yeah.
That would work for you.
Yeah, I agree, because this is a comprehensive solution, right? It's just not one step, it's a few more steps. And the hell, they got the dollars, so they can pay for 2 weeks more, right? Just to listen, like I said, the pathology makes sense, man. I mean, if you've had a concussion, you know it. Certain things shut down while you're there. And if you don't reactivate them, they're going to take their own time to reactivate. And that may not be good. But there were words I know I couldn't say. And my mother told me, like refrigerator was a word that I lost it. I don't know why, because I ate all the time. But I couldn't say the word. And then you don't know why. And it's frustrating. It's a little scary. Because I know the word I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. So with that being said, another one of my truths. I'm with you 110%, man. So 110%. Anything I can do.
Yes, sir.
I will do. So
absolutely.
You,
yeah. Thanks, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is Mr. Nate Pope.
Thank you, sir.
And as I said, so it's ncxbrainrecovery.com. The actual link will be in the description. Make sure you check it out for those that are needing some help, or somebody that needs some help. NFLPA, I'm talking to you too. Y'all need some help too. So you may need to look this gentleman up and holler at him and see what he's got going that can help those collective of NFL players who we see every day. When the season starts, they go to the little tent and, they do a little assessment, and then, it goes from there. So, Nate, I'll let you have the last words. What do you got before we go?
Well, we would love to be a part of anybody's recovery. So, if you've hit your head, or anyone who has, and they have symptoms that are not better after a month, and it's affected their quality of their life, that definitely does not have to keep continuing in that direction. You can fully recover from this stuff. And we do it every day, see it every day. There's a ton of hope when it comes to recovery from post-concussion syndrome. And we'd love to see any of you come in our doors and help you in any way we can. So,
Nate, we appreciate that. We're going to go on that note. Listen, on behalf, Nate, don't you go nowhere. On behalf of myself, I'm Kevin L. Warren, for the DA and our special guest today, Mr. Nate Pope. Hey, this is the Sports Chasers podcast. Y'all be good, be great. We'll catch y'all on the flip side. Y'all take care and be great. Peace.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Sports Chasers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, and connect with us on all social media channels for exclusive content and updates. We'd also love for you to join the conversation, share your thoughts, and become part of the Sports Chasers community. And remember to tune in next time for some more real sports talk. Until then, stay frosty.